Okay, welcome everybody. Apologies for the late starting of this meeting. My name is Councillor Kate Revilius and I'm Executive Member for Transport, and this is the Transport Decision Session on Tuesday, 27th of January. I have no apologies for absence and there was an apology for absence. Gary Taylor, Director of City Development, is unable to attend today, and we have Helen in place of Gary. I have no declarations of interest, and I shall sign the minutes from the last meeting here. There we go. So let's start with public participation. We've got 3 public speakers today. I'd like to welcome Andy de Gorn first. Do you want to just go to the end? There's a microphone there. Right. And would you like me to give you a 30-second reminder? Okay, great. Just go when you're ready.
Thank you. This is speaking relating to item 5, Blake Street safety improvements. Upgrading the toast rack style bike parking to permanent fixtures is very welcome, although the new location proposed in the turning area will be more vulnerable to vehicle strike. New signing and replacing the Toblerone electric sign will also help if backed by enforcement of the proposed loading ban. However, we strongly urge the executive member to delay implementing the two-way TRO and the opening up of a slip road exit in order to allow trial observation of the impact of the new signage and enforcement proposed. Paragraph 11 indicates that regulations already prohibit vehicles from entering the area from the junction during Foot Street hours, while paragraph 3 refers to an anticipated reduction in vehicles accessing the area to turn around. Therefore, clear signing and restricted access road markings, as is applied at Goodham Gate, coupled with enforcement, should be applied before making the changes that actually condone the current illegal manoeuvres and will encourage more pick-up and drop-off activity at all times of the day or night. The dog's breakfast wrong way use of a slip road, which has not been regularly used for years, will be dangerous for pedestrians crossing it, who are more likely to be looking towards the Minster as they cross, or looking out expecting any traffic to come from Duncan Place. Cyclists approaching from the cycle lane on Duncan Place are also likely to expect to use the slip road to reach the bike racks, or be forced onto the pavement rather than waiting at the signals to turn left at bike racks. Exiting vehicles making the sharp left turn towards the main road will block the cycle lane, and then when the lights turn green, swing out into the path of vehicles entering Duncan Place from the main junction. It's a solution that creates as many problems as it solves, attracts drivers into a pedestrian area and rewards rule breaking. Please pause this aspect of the scheme and put signs and loading ban in place for a trial period. Okay.
Thank you. And I will take all of those comments into consideration. Thank you. And next, I'd like to welcome up Tony May. You're ready.
Thank you, Chair. I'm speaking on behalf of York Civic Trust, and we welcome the Council's commitment to addressing the risk to vulnerable road users caused by drivers entering Blake Street illegally. However, the proposed solution addresses the symptoms rather than the cause. It also creates, as we've heard, a further barrier to pedestrian movement, imposes a tight left turn across a national cycle route, and adds 5 signs to the street clutter in one of the country's most important streetscapes. By giving priority to illegal vehicle movements at the expense of active travel, it's wholly incompatible with the Council's transport hierarchy. It also brings into question the Council's real commitment to rebalancing movement and place. Moreover, its equality and human rights assessment is grossly misleading in suggesting that the scheme should reduce the number of vehicles entering. It's highly likely to do the reverse, by encouraging servicing and private hire vehicles. If you do want to stop, as I hope you do, stop illegal vehicle movements, we recommend using a simple removable post, as in High Petergate, or using the Council's new powers of enforcement. Achieving compliance in these ways is a much more cost-effective way of protecting vulnerable road users. If, however, for reasons that are not given in the report, you consider that movement into this space should be permitted during foot street hours, then the traffic regulations will need to be changed, because otherwise these movements will continue to be illegal. In that context, the Trust has proposed an alternative solution which respects the Council's hierarchy and protects the public realm. Sadly, it's been seriously misrepresented in the report. It would not require changes to pavements or planting areas. It would not need an extra signal stage, and it would certainly not cost, quotes, several hundred thousands of pounds. It simply involves putting 2 new signal heads on the junction so that traffic can exit from Blake Street into the junction. It thus avoids the need to open the slip road, add to the barriers for pedestrians and cyclists, or impose additional signage. If you do decide to permit access, then we ask that this alternative and much less disruptive proposal is assessed objectively and, if appropriate, adopted. Thank you.
Thank you. And yeah, I will take all of that into consideration. Thanks for bringing that to me. And then lastly, Gwen Swinburne.
Thank you, Chair. As you know, this isn't on your agenda, but it's within your overall responsibilities. It's a tough one, I'm afraid. Chair, the Council has failed to lawfully operate the statutory parking challenge process, most evidently in the case of the Groves. No lawful statutory review has commenced because the required procedural preconditions have not been met. Statutory guidance issued under Section 18 of the Traffic Management Act 2004 requires the authority, following receipt of a petition, amongst other duties, to engage with petitioners and to agree the terms of reference for the review at the outset. This is not a unilateral officer exercise. In the Groves case and in our statutory challenges and in our other statutory challenges, this has not occurred. There are no agreed or published terms of reference, no defined scope, no identified list of traffic regulation orders or charging arrangements under review, no methodology and no timetable. In the absence of these procedural foundations, no statutory review exists in law. The Council has also failed to discharge its duty to engage with and assist petitioners. Rather than working with the Groves or others petitioners to define the review, officers have determined unilaterally what they will and will not consider and have excluded almost all material elements of the Groves statutory challenge. These exclusions include matters of legality, such as the lawfulness of charging and enforcement where signage and statutory compliance are in question. These are not matters of preference. They go to whether the parking regime is lawful or not. They have not been addressed in any way. This failure also engages the public sector equality duty. A significant proportion of Groves businesses are owners or operated by people from ethnic minority backgrounds. And 85% of Groves businesses are still not identified, acknowledged or engaged, and no equality impact assessment was undertaken at a formative stage. By proceeding on this officer-defined basis, excluding material elements of the statutory challenge, excluding the majority of affected businesses, the Council has frustrated the purpose of the statutory process and failed to comply with its legal obligations. As a result, the consultation is unfit. It cannot lawfully inform members or cure the defects in the handling of any. It cannot lawfully inform members or cure the defects in the handling of any statutory parking challenges. The only lawful course is to restart the process in accordance with the statutory requirements and ensure that all the challenger communities are treated fairly and lawfully. This is the position. Thank you. I know you can't answer now, but I had to get it on record because we've been ignored. Thank you.
So just to say, I'm also aware of the emails that you've sent in, and I will ask officers to respond to you on those points. Thank you.
We might ask the officers to actually receive them. Thank you. It's not your fault.
Okay, so moving on to item number 5, which is the Blake Street safety improvements. If officers introduce yourselves as you start. So Richard, are you going to lead off?
Yeah, sure. I'm Rich Holland, I'm senior. Rich Holland, senior transport projects manager. So this item has been brought to address a specific concern following the installation of the hostile vehicle mitigation, the bollards down Blake Street 2 years ago. Contrary to some things which have been said, this is principally an enforcement and improved signage scheme. That's the main impetus of this scheme, to reduce the number of vehicles entering the area and to be able to enforce current restrictions, and also bolster that with a further loading ban to prevent further loading delivery vans, which have become quite prevalent within the area within the last couple of years. We recognise, however, there are still going to be times when some drivers find themselves in there accidentally or deliberate. We do need to be able to safely and legally exit them from this particular area. We're not promoting this, nor are we wanting to encourage it in the slightest, but it is recognised safety concern, which was raised in a number of road safety audits within that area. And we do need to come up with a solution which can safely exit them from that particular area. As such, the traffic regulation order, which was advertised, proposes a number of changes, include the loading ban and slight alterations to the one-way system, including a larger double disabled parking bay within the area, which has been brought up to the specific sizes that are required, and also a couple of minor changes to some of the cycle parking, particularly. A lot that's been there for a long time, some of it's damaged. We wish to replace that with something more up to spec, solution, protected from any vehicle movements within that area with bollards. Also the introduction of new parking bays for inclusive and cargo bicycles, which was not there before. We do believe that the introduction, particularly of advanced signage on approach to Blake Street, will help to reinforce the restrictions which are there at the moment, which, as Tony rightly says, are an existing TRO that, no vehicles, with some exceptions, obviously, are allowed within that area within 10:30 and 5. Also, the defunct Toblerone sign will be replaced with something akin to what we've already got at Parliament Street and Gudrun Gate spring to mind, other entrances into the foot street. That should make that a lot clearer. We would look to implement this at the end of the existing highway works taking place in Blake Street, dovetail it together so that any access to Blake Street, which is currently subject to vehicle restrictions, would end at that point as soon as possible, so that we wouldn't be prolonging any issues there. I'll leave that for now.
Thank you. Helen, is there anything you'd like to add? Okay, lovely. Thank you. So thanks for the work that's gone into thinking about how to address the problems in this area, and thanks to the public speakers for coming along and raising those concerns. This has been a difficult scheme in that it's been necessary to take some action to prevent those illegal vehicle movements and to protect what should be a mainly pedestrianised area. The aim of the scheme is not to facilitate those vehicle movements, but it is to facilitate blue badge holders still being able to access the city centre, and to prevent those movements where vehicles are coming in to drop off or make deliveries. The scope of this scheme was to just address that issue rather than conduct wider improvements as part of the Reimagining York work and the movement and place work. I would be very keen to bring forward wider public realm improvements in the area, but we had to do something right now to address this particular issue. Having said that, I have got sympathy with the issues raised by public speakers and the concerns they have about the impact on pedestrian and cycle movements in the area. And I think until the scheme is implemented, we don't really know exactly what impact it will have in terms of reduction in vehicle movements. The reason I understand that we needed to open up the slip road to accommodate the vehicle movements is that there isn't sufficient space for vehicles to turn around on Blake Street and re-exit without doing many reversing movers and a 3-point turn. Can I just confirm
it's a very restricted area, and trying to enable exits and entrances at the same point of Blake Street, particularly where we have those 2 disabled bays as well, does require changes to curb lines and that planted area in order to widen it out. So it wouldn't be, as you rightly put, this kind of simple solution. It would be a wider scheme. Yes, I mean, some small vehicles perhaps could do a 3-point turn. Once you start getting slightly larger vehicles, and particularly cycle parking in the area and potentially disabled parking in the area, that becomes even more difficult to try to enable that manoeuvre.
Yeah, thank you. So what we have been able to do as part of this scheme is to provide 2 new blue badge parking spaces, which will be welcomed in this area, which hasn't got a huge amount of blue badge parking near the city centre, and to replace that cycle parking with better cycle racks and some new cargo and inclusive cycle parking. And I appreciate the feedback we've had from the cycle campaign on that, and you know, that's been really helpful. So the intention of the design is obviously to reduce those vehicle movements in the area, and the intention is that the advanced signage and the enforcement, plus a loading ban, will help to reduce those movements. But having listened to the concerns that have been raised, I'd like to propose some minor amendments to the officer recommendation to allow us to monitor the impact of those vehicle movements, and if needs be, return to mitigate, to include mitigations if we don't see that reduction in vehicle movements. So at paragraph 26, option 1, the proposal in the paper is that to approve the traffic regulation order for all of the scheme. What I'd like to propose is to approve the traffic regulation order for the loading ban and the blue badge parking bays, which we want to go ahead immediately. And then maybe to do an experimental traffic regulation order for 18 months for the other restrictions, such as the changes to the one-way. And then over that 18 months to do some monitoring. We have data already on the level of vehicle movements in the area. So we want to see that reduction in vehicle movements. And I'd also like some monitoring of any potential pedestrian and cycle conflict, and vehicle strikes to the bollards protecting the cycle racks, just so we understand the impact of opening up that slip road, and whether we need to take any further mitigations. So can I just check if that is a reasonable proposal?
I think it is, and we could do it. What I would recommend, however, is to do the experimental to cover the one-way and the blue badge bays, because if we were to review the one-way system, it might mean that we would have to review where the blue badge bays are located. So it might work better to have these 2 as experimental. The loading ban, I think we can go ahead as permanent because that would remain no matter what.
Okay, thank you. So just to summarise, the decision we're making now then is to implement the traffic regulation order for the loading ban and to implement an experimental traffic regulation order for the blue badge parking bays and the changes to the one-way system, with some monitoring to occur over the next 18 months to assess the impact of the scheme.
Would you like that every 6 months?
I think, yeah,
I think
and
that's
an initial burst of enforcement activity
Yes.
once the scheme is in place to make sure everyone's aware of and used to the changes. Yeah. Lovely. Okay. Thank you, everybody. I haven't been made aware of any urgent business. So with that, I will draw the meeting to a close. Thank you.